Hello, this is episode number 14 of Overheard Orlando. Today I'm going to be hearing from my friend Caitlyn Weesner. I hope I'm saying that right. She just recently got married. She's going to be sharing with us some of her experiences with anxiety and panic, something that I know a lot of us are very familiar with, myself very, very much included in that. You're also going to notice that this episode takes on a new format that lends itself quite well to social distancing, a bit of a departure from what I've done in the past. Speaking of departure, let's go. Okay, so for starters, Caitlin's going to just briefly touch on some of the difficulties that she's encountered, just some general difficulties that coming to terms with and realizing her anxiety has brought upon her. Let's take a listen.
Hey, Stephen. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really looking forward to discussing this topic with you. It is extremely important and so much easier to talk about and open up about in the world these days, which I'm extremely grateful for. The most difficult thing for me to overcome when it came to my anxiety was accepting the fact that the idea of a normal life that I had in my head was not going to be my life at all. There were going to have to be accommodations made for me when it came to everyday activities or tasks, and that was a hard pill for me to swallow. And to this day is still something that I'm trying to overcome.
So, a couple things to note here. One being the normal life thing. Well, first, I want to say that I know a lot of people, and myself included, you don't really realize right away that you have anxiety. You don't realize that a lot of other people don't feel those feelings of panic or those feelings of fear of the future or whatever your anxiety is based in. So, to you, it is normal, at least before you realize what it is. Secondly, she mentioned making those accommodations for herself. If you suffer from anxiety, it is important that you make those accommodations for yourself and you do learn of the best ways to go about life and the best ways to work around your anxiety or in tandem with your anxiety. So, next, we're going to hear how anxiety has impacted Caitlin's love life.
Anxiety got in the way of me falling in love with my now husband, and the reason why I say that is because when I first met him and we were dating, it took me almost 2 years to be completely open and honest about the intensity of my anxiety with him. I would have panic attacks in his bathroom and come out acting like nothing happened. It was hard because I felt like I was hiding something from him. And I mean, after all, I really was. I felt like a liar. It was distracting. When you meet someone and you're falling in love, all you want to do is be around them. Your mind is usually only on them. But while I was going through that phase, anxiety would oftentimes be a distraction. It would always try to remind me that it was there even when I was happiest. It caused a great deal of insecurity for me in my relationship as well. And I don't want to necessarily say I ever got around it, but I did get through it. And I did so by opening up and being honest with my husband about what I go through and try to educate him. These days, when I have a panic attack or I'm having bad anxiety, he'll sit with me through it. It has been such a relief, and I got very lucky with how understanding he has been and how hard he has worked to learn what anxiety and panic is and how to help me with it.
I'd like to start by saying congratulations, Caitlin, on finding such a devoted partner. That is really awesome that your anxiety is something that you are able to share with him. And that's really important is to, when in terms of love, you got to find someone who is willing to work with you on that anxiety. As far as the beginning of a relationship, anxiety can be such a difficult thing to deal with. You can have anxiety about having anxiety about sharing that anxiety. To an outside perspective, you can seem really shy or disinterested, difficult to read. I know that from both ends of the dating with anxiety spectrum. But yeah, I could not agree more. Educating your partner is absolutely paramount. Like she mentioned, to someone who doesn't experience anxiety or who experiences anxiety differently, it can appear like nothing happened. like everything is fine, or maybe you're just a little strange, you know? So it's really important to bring them up to speed on what it is you're feeling. And if they're the right person, they will love and accept that and help you work through it. Next, we're going to see how anxiety has affected Caitlyn's aspiring modeling career.
Modeling is something I started very young, at around 14 years old. This was the same year I started experiencing some of my first panic attacks. I found that while I was behind the camera, I felt a sense of peace. My mind went to another world. Modeling is such a beautiful art that while you are the muse, you feel like you can be anything or anyone you want to be. I would paint a picture in my mind while I was on set that I was the me that I always wanted to be. I was calm, I was successful, all of my anxiety was gone, and in those moments, my mind would always feel a sense of complete peace, which is essentially why I continued to pursue modeling. It was not only my passion, but also my escape. Now, that's not to say that anxiety hasn't had a negative effect on my career goals as well, because it has. It has made the process of me getting to where I would like to be in the industry a lot longer. Confrontation is another thing that's extremely hard for me, especially on a day where I'm feeling high anxiety. This has caused me to blow off in-person meetings with agents, blow off photo shoots, ignore emails, ignore phone calls, all because I would be panicking and couldn't make it stop in time to get things done. I've had family and friends, and not all of them, but some of them, tell me I'm getting too old, I should have been huge in the industry by now, or that I need to start finding a new career path. And while I always make sure to have options, something always tells me to stay on the path and keep fighting for what I'm passionate about. So that's kind of where I'm at right now.
It is really, really common for those who suffer from anxiety and panic disorders to engage in escapism, be that through their hobbies, or some become workaholics, some dive into Netflix or video games. But escapism is a really nice way to kind of quiet the noise for at least a little bit. And if you can escape into something that is both fun and productive and profitable, you're really quite fortunate. That being said, though, it is all too often that panic equals procrastination, whether it is replying to those emails or making those phone calls or leaving your shitty job for the one that you really want. Sometimes the fear, the anxiety, the panic about these things kind of makes you put it off indefinitely. And if you don't check that, you could become complacent and maybe never reach those goals for no other reason than you never tried. The relationship between anxiety and confrontation is also pretty noteworthy. Anxiety derives from a fight or flight reaction, and I know that my anxiety, it's a literal coin toss. I'm either going to be completely defensive or offensive, or I'm going to completely avoid the confrontation altogether, which, of course, the healthiest course of action would be a happy medium somewhere in the middle. Next, Caitlyn is going to share some words with us for anyone who is listening that may be suffering from anxiety or panic.
For anyone who's experiencing any form of anxiety or severe panic attacks, do not give up. I know that's a cliche thing to say, but it's so important to implant that in your mind. I've wanted to give up so many times, throw the towel in and just surrender to this awful disorder. It has affected my quality of life many times, so if that's something you are currently experiencing, I completely understand. But there is so much hope out there for us, so much for us to succeed in our lifetime that will allow us to push past the barriers that anxiety has built for us. Take the good days and run with them. Acknowledge your good days. Do something productive on your good days. Because although the good days come and go, so do the bad. Remind yourself of that and find something you are passionate about if you haven't already. It will give you a reason to want to get up in the morning, even if it's just to simply live. And never be too hard on yourself. Sometimes just getting up out of bed for the day is enough of an accomplishment and one that you should be proud of, especially on the bad days.
If I could just piggyback on the don't give up portion of that response, don't just take that as don't surrender to the disorder, but also don't give up on your goals or your dreams. Anxiety has a really, really great way of talking you out of doing things, telling you that you won't make it, predicting the worst possible outcome. oftentimes really incorrectly. It has a way of skewing things and making you view things with a very negative lens. Another really important point there was acknowledge the good days. It is also really common with anxiety to kind of replay the same bad day over and over again, or bad conversation or bad moment. Sometimes you won't be able to help that, but it is important to acknowledge the good days. And that's something that I've really taught myself to do as well. Oftentimes, I'll find myself replaying the good moments of a day or my triumphs and my successes. And then that's a really great habit to get into and kind of takes that anxious method of thinking and turns it into something positive. Now, it just wouldn't be Overheard Orlando if we didn't hear Caitlyn's personal philosophy. So here it is.
People are complex, yet they're extremely simple. A smile is a universal language that I feel like people need to practice more often. Everyone has a story. Everyone has a why in life, a reason why they get up and go to work, or get up and go to school, or simply just get up. So be kind to them. I've always believed deeply in the term that goes along the lines of, you may not be able to change the world, but you can inspire someone who can. And I think of that every day when I'm interacting with others. A little bit of kindness can be just what someone needs to keep pushing throughout their day or week or even beyond that. And who knows, they could be the one to go out and change the world, and it could have all started with your smile. Life is fragile. It can be taken from us in a second, but don't overanalyze that phrase. I do that too often, which is where most of my anxiety stems from. Just take that phrase and use it to motivate you to strive to do better each day. Be better to your peers and be better to yourself. You wake up every day because you have a purpose in this life, and you'll find it if you haven't already. And it's within that journey of finding your purpose that you are responsible for how you treat every individual, every obstacle, and every decision you may face along the way. So make it count.
If you don't give it much thought, being kind to people can kind of seem like a cliche or a mindless platitude. But if you take, for example, anxiety, which is this kind of invisible disorder, it's not always going to look like someone biting their nails or chain smoking cigarettes. Someone could be living through a personal hell, and your kindness could be what makes their day that day. Also worth mentioning is the graduation from having that fear of the fragility of life and the possibility of death and turning that fear into a certain bravery of life being short or take advantage of the time you have kind of thing is a huge breakthrough. I know I too have gone down that path, and it's really quite liberating. Thank you again so much for listening. You guys already know where to find me, right? Overheard Orlando Podcast on Instagram or overheardorlandopodcast@gmail.com. Great. Well, that does it for me. Stay true.